Hello everyone, MarshW13 here with a Vegas fine dining restaurant review. And tonight we're at the Bellagio for dinner at Michael Mina's eponymous flagship restaurant located just off the world-famous Bellagio Conservatory. Now, Michael Mina is an Egyptian-born Michelin-starred celebrity chef whose specialty is seafood, and he's built a veritable restaurant empire in Vegas and beyond. And the menu at Michael Mina is definitely quite seafood heavy. Fresh seafood is shipped fresh daily from around the world, and there are two tasting menus: a Seasons of Mina menu, which is mostly fresh seafood oriented and fluctuates seasonally, and there's a signature menu that features Mina's best dishes. And for dinner tonight, I've opted for the signature menu with wine pairing. I always say a mark of a special restaurant is the elegance and refinement of the water glasses, and this one does not disappoint. The water itself is nothing special, Fiji, but it's acceptable. Any fine dining meal starts with an amuse-bouche, and this one is no different. Here we have a curry cauliflower soup with crispy sunchokes, which was unexpectedly warm and really accentuated by Mediterranean flavors, which I thought was an appropriate prelude to a Michael Mina meal. The cauliflower puree was silky smooth, and the crispy sunchokes added a smoky, earthy dimension, almost like potato chips. And the greens on top added a hint of freshness. Overall, it was a very good start, just not mind-bending or life-altering, and it lingered on the palate in a good way as I waited the next course. The next course was accompanied not by wine, but by liquor, specifically a shot of Belvedere Vodka, which, despite the name, is a Polish rye vodka brand, and it was recommended to sip before as a palate cleanser to enhance the caviar. Not surprisingly, as a premium vodka, I found it very clean and smooth. Although I'm not a hard liquor drinker, I finished the generous pour in its entirety. Now, as for the Caviar Parfait with smoked salmon, creme fraiche, and egg mimosa, this is essentially a reconstructed play, if you will, on a traditional fine dining caviar course. It's presented beautifully, but it falls apart quickly in the first cut. I found the potato cake on the bottom a bit dry and overwhelming, but the cream and caviar are a classic pairing made distinctive by the vodka, and as evidenced by the other menu items with the same ingredient, this is clearly high-quality caviar. In the case of most 7-course meals, the best piece of advice is don't fill up on the bread, but Michael Mina is unique in this regard. The flatbread, which is served with a trio of hummus, olives, and Greek yogurt, is obligatory noshing between courses. The hummus is far richer than your average supermarket or even restaurant hummus. It has almost a meaty quality like refried beans, and the Greek yogurt is straight from Greece, so acidic with the perfect amount of Greek spice. These dips pair perfectly with the warm, heavenly textured flatbread. The next course is a tuna tartar comprised of mint, pine nuts, scotch bonnet, and sesame oil, and they offer to mix these items for you on the plate, which I accepted. The recommendation is to try the tuna both by itself and spread atop the toast provided.
And the plate does have a little scotch bonnet infused sesame oil, a dusting of ancho chili powder, and fresh mint.
Beautiful. I really enjoyed this exhibition element, and I can vouch that although they are thoroughly mixed, each of these components really shine through, especially the sesame oil. This is apparently a 26-year-old Michael Mina signature recipe that originated in Hawaii. The tuna mixture is great by itself if you love raw tuna, but also amazing with the plain dry toast, so long as you get the tuna to toast ratio just right. The one element of the dish that didn't come through strongly was the scotch bonnet, which didn't lend quite the kick to the dish I was expecting, and I was also hoping for a bit more acidity to cut through the fat of the tuna, but the freshness of the fruit really compensates. As for the wine, it was a very successful pairing, a 2018 Pauli Bergweiler Riesling, which was sweeter than advertised, making for an even better accompaniment for the spicy tuna. This is a single vineyard-sourced wine, not as fruity on the nose or crisp on the palate as other Rieslings. And again, the service is impeccable. The silver and glassware were clearly chosen quite carefully, which is yet another mark of a superior fine dining establishment. Next up was a very dry Bordeaux blend of Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon from Grave. I must admit I am not that familiar with white Bordeaux, This one was quite minerally on the nose with perhaps some stone fruit, slightly reminiscent of a Sauterne, although this wine again was extremely dry yet fruity and somewhat chalky. Overall, I found it somewhat bitter but mellow on the palate. The white Bordeaux was paired with a phyllo-crusted sole with king crab brandade, pea shoots, and a mustard beurre blanc. The fish itself was somewhat evocative of a really sophisticated fish stick, cooked to flaky perfection with the phyllo making for a beautifully crisp and buttery panko-like crust. Although the dollop of cream cheese on top added very little, the beurre blanc was almost potato puree-like in thickness. Overall, the dish was just a bit too potato-forward for my taste. Next up on the wine list was a Shaffer Chardonnay from Carneros, which was perhaps a bit too bitter or acidic for the food. Like most Chardonnays, it was rather unaromatic, not at all fruity, but oaky, so more of a standard California Chardonnay. And this was paired with Michael's Lobster Pot Pie of brandied lobster cream, black truffle, and baby vegetables. This lobster pot pie may just be Michael Mina's most famous signature dish, and it has inspired similar dishes in his other restaurants, including an escargot-based pot pie at Bordeaux, which I reviewed in another video. It starts with an amazingly buttery, flaky crust on the inside. Although the lobster meat is far from generous, lobster flavors infused throughout the filling with perfectly cooked vegetables. The little lobster meat present is slightly on the well-done side, but the filling is so creamy and rich, and it was one of the more successful wine pairings of the night, with the Chardonnay perfectly complementing the sweetness of the lobster. Now, I somehow did not manage to capture this final savory course on video, so I'll just mention it briefly. It was a prime beef Rossini with foie gras, Bloomsdale spinach, and sauce perigordini. This wasn't the best steak I've ever had. The beef was spiced in a way that made it taste almost sausage-like. It grows in richness with the foie gras as you reach the center. The pairing was with a wine I've tried before, a highly rated Napa Cabernet called Caterwaul, which has a cat on the label, named of course after the sound made by female cats in heat. I like the pairing because while it's definitely a Napa Cab, the Caterwaul isn't so oaky that it overwhelms the meat. But the wine is from the Stag's Leap AVA. You definitely get an oak bomb on the nose with vanilla and tobacco, but in the end it's an elegant and quite minerally wine. The dessert course was called Textures of Chocolate, consisting of cocoa chiffon, a milk chocolate pot creme, and burnt caramel ice cream. As the ingredients imply, it's richly chocolatey and caramelly. It is called Textures of Chocolate, and there are a number of textural variations to enjoy. The inside of the chocolate was a bit like a mochi-based dessert. The wine pairing this time was a Saint-Amand dessert port, which hit the typical port notes. It was corky and woody and nutty and tawny, but also a bit more refined than other ports. The caramel ice cream alone made this a great pairing, and I found it highly successful. I always like to end a luxurious meal with a cappuccino, although this one was just average. On the balance of it, this was a great meal. The food was quite good, the wine pairings were above average, the service was great, and you can't beat the location in the heart of the Las Vegas Strip, exiting to the world-famous Bellagio Conservatory. And with the number of fine dining Las Vegas establishments, particularly those offering tasting menus with wine pairings, having dwindled during the pandemic, a restaurant like this one is an increasingly dying breed. If you should have occasion to eat here, let me know how you liked it. Until next time, March W13 out.